As we begin this morning by ringing our peace bowl, we are confronted by chaos in our world. May we have wisdom to believe in peace, and surrounded by voices of disagreement, may we have the audacity to speak for peace. Lured by the seduction of despair, may we have the courage to maintain a vision of possibility and peace. Thank you, Lena. Good morning. It's so good to see all of you here in person and all of your smiling faces at home on Zoom. I see Phil Dixon is here with us, visiting from Colorado. It's lovely to have our longtime member back with us again. Welcome to everybody to Granite Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation right here in Prescott, Arizona. I'm Bobby Bollinger. I will be your worship associate this morning. And today in our pulpit this morning is our longtime friend, the Reverend Becky Gunn, who has graciously agreed to speak with us this morning while our minister, the Reverend Patty Willis, continues to recover from COVID. To share a bit of Reverend Becky's background with you, you should know that after a 30-year career in business, she chose to go to the Star King School of Ministry and to become a UU minister. She did her internship in Albany, New York, an interim ministry in Boulder, Colorado, and her called ministry for 6 years in Bangor, Maine, where she became the minister emerita in 2014. Her focus in ministry was spiritual growth associated with social justice, and she retired to Prescott in 2015. Welcome, Reverend Becky. This is the mission statement of our congregation. We are a compassionate, spiritual community that celebrates diversity, nurtures the personal and spiritual growth of all ages, shares our gifts, promotes justice for all, and serves the world we live in. We gather on Sunday mornings for worship, but also for the joy of community. We hope that you will join us after the service for coffee, socializing, and catching up with your peeps in Davis Hall. Our friends on Zoom will have a chance to connect with one another via the breakout rooms. And our topic this morning is one that seems to me to be particularly timely, and Reverend Becky has agreed to stay here in the sanctuary to discuss it with anyone who would like to do so. Newcomers and visitors will be given an opportunity at the end of our service to introduce themselves. We'd love to hear your story and how you found us. So come have a cup of coffee with us in Davis Hall so we can get to know you better. Besides Reverend Becky, we thank our pianist this morning, Lena Hubin, Deidre Swartz, our tech wizard in the back, and all of the Sunday morning volunteers who make the wheels go around for our service. And to avoid any unanticipated feelings of embarrassment, we remind you to please place your phones on worship mode. In addition to the announcements on the screen before and after our service, congregational information is also available in the order of service, which there are orders of service out on the table in the foyer, our weekly Peak newsletter, and in Reverend Patty's videos. Additionally, our website at prescottuu.org contains a wealth of information. Sandra Palacios, our Children's Faith Development Coordinator, is teaching ages 5 and older across the street in our Faith Development Building, and all of our children are invited to join their lessons and fun each week. And now we will join with Unitarian Universalists everywhere with the tradition of lighting our chalice. Our chalice lighter this morning is Jack Bennett. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom.
Good morning. It's good to be back with you. I'm grateful that you allow me to, sort of sermonize with you. I also want to thank Lena for that opening music. It so touched me. Thank you. As we gather on this crisp fall morning, many of us are filled with fear. This election feels critical to us. And as Tuesday approaches, we wonder what we can do. Well, we can and should continue to spread our words of truth and love. One myth that we need to clarify is that of Christian nationalism. And that is part of the topic today. I understand that I'll be preaching to the choir, but sometimes that's helpful in reassuring us that we have it right, that we were founded as a country, as a pluralistically religious country. And I want to talk about how we can shore up our hope and our love of country and community. As we sing our opening hymn, We'll Build a Land, it's number 121 in the gray hymnals. Think of our purpose. Building a land where justice abides, where peace abounds, where people can seek and find truth. So I'd ask that you rise in body or spirit as you are able and join us in singing our our hymn.
We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning. Oh, we'll build a promised land that can be. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like the ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land where we bring the good tidings to all the afflicted and all those who mourn, and we'll give them garlands instead of ashes. Oh, we'll build a land where peace is born. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like the ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land building up ancient cities, raising up the devastations of old, restoring ruins of generations. Oh, we'll build a land of people so bold. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like the ever-flowing stream. Come build a land where the mantles of praises resound from spirits once faint and once weak, where oaks of righteousness stand her people. Oh, come build a land, my people we seek. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like the ever-flowing stream.
And now, let's remind ourselves of our covenant by sharing these words together. Love is the doctrine of this congregation, the quest for truth, its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community. Thus do we covenant together. Reverend Becky has asked me to share these two readings with you this morning to set the stage for her message. She asks that you listen carefully to the words as they will be used and referenced in her talk. They may have a familiar ring to them, to you, because you may have had to have memorized some of them in school. The first reading contains excerpts from the Declaration of Independence, and the second is the First Amendment. First from the Declaration. when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to this separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, a free and independent state, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortune, and our sacred honor. And now for the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Moving on. As a community, we share our lives, we grow together, we laugh together, we love together, we grieve together, and we support one another. We take this time in our service to reflect on our joys and concerns for friends and family members. We grieve the loss this week of one of Granite Peak's founding members, Ken Briefer, and appreciate his numerous contributions to our church community over the past 26 years. We hold Reverend Patty and Mary Lou Prince in our hearts as they continue to recover from COVID. And we celebrate with Rhea Batterman, who, after 7 days of being quarantined with COVID, is finally free from quarantine jail and can continue on the rest of her vacation. We extend warm wishes to Maria Fleury, recovering from foot surgery. We hope she will be as light on her feet as she is in her spirit when she has recovered. We are thankful that Karen Denny recently had successful surgery, and she's here with us this morning. Hi, Karen. And we are holding Sharon Watt before her cardiac surgery on November the 22nd. Additionally, there may be personal joys and sorrows not expressed here that you would like to honor quietly. If so, you're invited to come forward to one of the two bowls on either side table and place a stone in the water. As the ripples move outward from your stone, may they carry your expressions of love and joy to the wider world. I will begin by placing 6 stones for the people we mentioned above. will place 2 additional stones for Warren and Bronwyn. Warren Butterfield and Bronwyn Butterfield and Warren Miller, who I was just told are also at home battling COVID. And now please join me in singing Walking with You. Walking, walking with you, walking with you is my prayer. Our beloved community supports this congregation through the gifts of time, talent, and treasure. Our morning offering supports the programs, salaries, and building expenses that enable our congregation to move forward and thrive. Additionally, Granite Peak has a long history of giving back to the greater community through our Seeds of Support program. November's recipient is a new one for us, Winter Warm Up, a wintertime overnight emergency shelter that serves nightly meals to men and women. Following dinner, the men sleep at the shelter and women are transported to the Prescott Area Shelter Services or the Coalition for Compassion and Justice, depending on bed availability. For those of you on Zoom, a link for giving online is available in the chat, or you can also go to the website. I might also add that when you donate to Granite Peak, your funds will go into the general fund unless you specify that they are to go for Seeds of Support or for your pledge. The morning offering will now be taken while Lena plays a piece called Fiddler's Reel. The composer is Jack Frederick Kilpatrick, born in Oklahoma, who was the first Cherokee to receive widespread acclaim as a composer. The morning offering will now be taken. The generosity felt through this offering is received with much love and gratitude. Blessed be.
These are the words of Martin Luther King. I know you've heard them many times. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted. Every hill and mountain shall be made low, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith with which I return. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood and sisterhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with a new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. I'm going to say that line again. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. And let freedom ring from the curvaceous peaks of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. When we let freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up the day when all of God's children, Black men, white men, Jews, Gentiles, Protestants, and Catholics will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last. Thank God. Almighty, we are free at last. As the musical interlude is played, ponder Martin Luther King's hopeful, moving, meaningful, motivating words that are grounded in the belief that all of us, all religions, all colors, all of us can be together, free, in harmony and love. Today, my message is about fear and hope. It's about a current yet historical issue that contains elements that cause fear. It is also about how we must continue to believe and to hope that our efforts and our commitment to democracy can prevail. While many of you may have voted already, I also want to urge those of you who have not to do so. It is important and it is essential, and it's an essential practice that can help elevate our sense of agency and also our hope. The first question we'll try to address this morning will be, were we founded as a Christian nation? The reason I ask this question is because there is a phrase that is being bandied about these days, and that phrase is Christian nationalism. The premise is that we were founded exclusively for white Protestant Christians. No one else is to be included or welcome in our nation, at least according to this purportedly historically correct dogma. This position of Christian nationalism adds to our current fears. Our fear is that if this election turns in a certain direction, that this dogma might become the dogma of this country. Where would we fit in? How could we live in freedom and beloved community if this position is adopted? Could democracy as we know it survive? I know that I am fearful. I'm worried. And I honestly don't think it matters which political party we're associated with or what we support. Instead, we have become so polarized and so divided that we are separated by walls that are generated by disinformation and therefore fear. I'm not sure I have the solution for that fear, but I do know that we must not let that fear take away our commitment, our energy, our willingness to stand for what we believe. Fear cannot, must not win. Hope must. Let us first consider the historical accuracy of the statement that we were founded as a Christian nation. We are told that by rejecting Christian values, which I don't think we reject, but that everything that we value about our nation will be destroyed. It is founded on the idea that white men who believe in a particular Christian faith should be the holders of power and all rights. Those of us who don't hold these particular and very not specific Christian values will be second-class citizens. We would have no unalienable rights. None of this is simple in actuality. We, the United States of America, were formed as a secular nation, and various values in our formation. The values of freedom, equity, justice, human rights. Granted, we weren't perfectly formed. There are some inequities built into the system. Slavery, sexism, the necessity of property ownership in order to participate in the government. That's just a few. But instead of looking at and focusing on those limitations, instead I ask the questions, are these values of freedom and equity and justice exclusively Christian? No, They're not. As part of the research for this sermon, I read two books, American Gospel by John Meacham and The Faith of the Founding Fathers by David Holmes. Much of the historical information that I will use today came from these two books. Now, religion in the United States is one of the most pervasive and yet possibly least understood forces in American culture. Fully 70% of the population say that they have a Christian faith. Based on a 2014 Pew survey, only 25% of that 70% said that they were evangelical. Yet it feels as if they're in that small percentage of people have a huge influence, disproportionate to their numbers. Now, is this level of fanaticism unprecedented? Well, I have a famous politician who once said, quote unquote, "The atmosphere of our country is unquestionably charged with threatening clouds of fanaticism, lighter in some parts, darker in others, but too heavy in all," unquote. Now, was this a 21st century politician? Nope. It was Thomas Jefferson in 1822. Just what was the religious tableau in the colonies in the 1770s? According to Holmes, the colonists were overwhelmingly either Protestant or unchurched. However, one should note that there were just over 1,000 Jews counted in the first census in 1790, which equates to 0.4% of the 3 million counted in the first census. There were also some Roman Catholics. There were also some Islamic peoples. And as for the Protestants, there were numerous sects. There were the Sandemanians, who openly opposed the accumulation of wealth and observed dietary laws very similar to early Jewish Christian customs. There were Moravians who stressed the inner testimony and charity. There were Mennonites, the heirs of the Anabaptists. There were the Shakers, the Quakers, the Baptists, the Arminians, the Socinians, the Anglicans, the Episcopals, the Methodists, the Puritans, the Presbyterians, the Lutherans, the Dutch Reformed, the French Reformed. There were nascent Universalists. There were Unitarians, Independents, and Congregationalists, to name just a few. Diversity in religious beliefs, if not just Christian beliefs, was clearly not a new thing in the colonies. So one of my questions about Christian nationalism is, what Christian theology were we founded in and by? There are many. Freedom of religion did not necessarily come with that diversity in the colonies. And prior to the revolution, 9 colonies had state religions. That is one where it was required that you participated in the designated faith of the colony, or at least pay taxes to support that state church. Massachusetts was one such colony where for years the Puritans dominated the religious and governmental scene. And many were condemned to death for defying the church's rules. Only in Pennsylvania was there a true openness for different theologies and associated churches. William Penn, an English Quaker, founded a colony as a holy experiment where Quakers and other persecuted religious sects could live and worship freely. The religious tableau varied, but what about the founding fathers? Were they primarily Christian? No, both Holmes and Nietzsche state otherwise. Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, James Monroe, Samuel Adams, and John Jay are discussed in depth in both of these books. And I think you might well agree that that's a pretty good subset of the founding fathers. Benjamin Franklin was a deist through and through. Washington was an Anglican who attended, I don't know, attacked is not the right word, attended Anglican Episcopal services openly, but who was never confirmed and, based on public records, never took communion. And he refused to kneel in prayer. He also quite often used the word providence rather than the word God. John Adams was a nominal Unitarian. He said, God has given us reason to find the truth, to the real design and the end of our existence. He fell into the Unitarian category of thinking of Jesus as fully human, but he acknowledged the role, Jesus's role in the development of Christianity. Jefferson was an enlightened deist, but he never formally left his ancestral faith. He opposed established churches, stating that, quote, millions of innocent men, women, and children since the introduction of Christianity have been burnt, tortured, fined, and imprisoned in the name of Christ, unquote. He was an enormously complex man who felt religion was important. He tended to view Jesus as a moral exemplar. James Madison fought for religious liberty, revealing that he felt toleration was insufficient, that there should be a guarantee in the Virginia Constitution and later the Bill of Rights for the freedom of conscience. There were very limited resources about the nature of Madison's faith, but he did refer to nature's God more often than he did to the Christian deity. James Monroe said very little about religion, so we simply don't know. And Samuel Adams was a Calvinist, and John Jay was an evangelical Episcopalian. In summary, the face of the founding fathers tended toward deism. Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson were out deists. Adams was a Unitarian. Madison and Monroe were marginal deists. Only Samuel Adams and John Jay were Orthodox Christians. For a moment, let's talk about what deism was in the 1770s. Thomas Paine, the major proponent of deism in the colonies, said of deism, quote, "It is free from all those invented and torturing articles that shock our reason, with which the Christian religion abounds. Its creed is pure and sublimely simple. It believes in God, and there it rests. It honors reason as the choicest gift of God and the faculty by which he is enabled to contemplate the power, the wisdom, and the goodness of the Creator displayed in creation. It avoids all presumptuous benefits and rejects as the fabulous inventions of men all books pretending to revelation," unquote. Deism was never an organized religious sect. It had no creed and no form of worship, and it emerged from the Enlightenment. Voltaire, Rousseau, Locke, Newton, Bacon were all deists propounding, quote, a first cause who created the universe which operated according to natural laws, unquote. Locke's test of truth was whether a belief made sense in human reason. Reason, according to Paine, was the most formidable of weapons. That the human mind possessed the ability to comprehend the natural laws that God had initiated. The deist God was not the God of the Hebrews and Christians. God was the mechanic who had made the watch and then left it to tick according to certain laws. God did not intervene once creation was complete. Now, metaphors abound when speaking of the deist God. And here are some for your consideration. First cause, creator of the universe, divine artist, grand architect, the God of nature, divine providence, supreme judge. So this morning, Bobby, thankfully, read a portion of the Declaration of Independence. And in that, there were certain words. How about nature's God? Creator, supreme judge, divine providence. These words were all used in that Declaration of Independence. But there's no mention of Almighty God or Jesus or the Christ. Jefferson and the framers of the Declaration actually were successful in negotiating the middle ground between the determined evangelizing of Christianity and the secular non-religious philosophers. The political philosophy of the Declaration was neither overtly Christian nor purely secular. At the same time, the founders understood that they lived in a society imbued with religion. Those founders recognized that if this experiment of a republic was to work, the nation's diversity must be allowed to continue to exist. State religion would not work in a world where Christian and Jew and Mohammedan lived side by side. The only chance for success was to allow for freedom of conscience, a freedom of belief. So, to clearly answer my initial question, no, this nation was not founded as a Christian nation as such. It was not based on only Christian principles and values. It was based on a cultural ethic of morality and rights based in natural laws, not church laws. At the same time, we need to concede that the founders equally did not reject religion, but instead saw that it was an act of individual conscience and that it was acceptable to have a public religion expressive of a more universal creator, not a theologically singular type of God. Unitarian Universalism is a beneficiary of the First Amendment. And believe it or not, we have followed the centrist path made by Jefferson and the founding fathers. We recognize the freedom of conscience. Within our congregations, we worship differently, we believe differently. Yet we have a community of belief as expressed in our principles. We access reason and display secular tendencies, while at the same time, we have reverence for the transcendent mystery. We're not extremists, although there are some that call us that. We give credence to history and the experience of the American system of checks and balances, and we truly believe in democracy. Did the drafters of the Constitution and Bill of Rights allow for the establishment of different religions and the exercise of them? Yes. So we do have a freedom of religion. Our UU existence is testimony to that. Do we have the freedom from religion? Yes and no. Yes, we do have the freedom from state religion, from an enforced practice of a particular theological approach. No one can make us go to church. No one can make us worship a particular God. And no, we do not have a freedom from religion. Whether we wish it or not, there is a public religion where we, with reverence, acknowledge a source. This is a cultural fact. It is a sacred trust which we have been given, this freedom of religion. It is to be cherished, acknowledged, and defended. The freedom of this religion allows us to practice our faith on any day of the week and allow our neighbors to do the same. That freedom from a designated religious perspective also allows us to have public discourse around religious questions. We must allow that discourse if we are to continue to have our freedom of religion, our freedom of conscience. And now we come back to our fears, that we no longer have a reasonable public discourse regarding religion or about its role in our founding. So what can we do? I think back to Martin Luther King's words. We must continue to dream. We must continue to try and have reasonable dialogue despite the walls that have grown between those of us who differ in political and religious beliefs. As with all of you, I have friends that I've had for years who now believe dramatically differently than I believe. Some have explained my errors to me, let's put it that way. But I persist. I still try to have opportunities to talk with these friends. I still love them. And I honestly believe that they still care for me. I'm not rejecting them. This is the only way, from my perspective, to remain open, to try and to discuss. It may take years and it may never happen, but we must remain open to listening to them and hope that, and work toward maybe having them open their hearts and minds to us. I will continue to dream, as I hope you will too. It is a journey, this democracy that we live in. It is a journey toward community. And no one ever said it would be easy. But friends, We can still love. We can still hope. We can still work toward a concept that was formed in the 1770s. It is a work in progress. We can dream. We can work. We can hope. We must. We can. And we will. So be it. Amen. Thank you. Our closing hymn is number 168, One More Step.
One more step, we will take one more step, till there is peace for us, and everyone will take one more step. One more word, we will say one more word, till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word. One more prayer, we will say one more prayer, till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer. One more song, we will sing one more song, till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song.
Let us take one more step. Say one more word. Say one more prayer. And sing one more song. Steps and words and prayers and songs toward freedom, toward love, toward community, and toward peace. Go in peace and return again in love.
Thank you, Becky, for your poignant and very, very timely message this morning. Let us join together now in the words for extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our service is now ending, but please take all the time that you would like to visit with your friends and visitors online or here in Davis Hall over a cup of coffee. For those of you who are with us on Zoom, we're really glad that you were with us this morning. We're going to say goodbye to you at this time, and you are invited to join a breakout room.